The southern latitudes of the Moon are some of the most hostile environments in our solar system. The topography is dominated by deep, jagged craters, many of which cast permanent, freezing shadows that have not seen sunlight in billions of years. In 2008, India's Chandrayaan-1 mission dropped an impact probe into one of those craters. Before it struck the surface, the probe detected water molecules in the lunar exosphere, the incredibly thin layer of gases hovering just above the ground. Locating water from orbit is a significant scientific step, but to actually utilize that water for rocket fuel or life support, a spacecraft must land and extract it directly from the lunar regolith. The Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO, originally planned to reach the surface by partnering with Russia, who would provide the lunar lander. When the Russian space agency withdrew from the agreement following its own mission failures, ISRO was left without a landing vehicle for its follow-up mission. This loss of international backing forced ISRO to rely entirely on its own engineering. To reach the surface, they had to design and build a completely indigenous lunar architecture. In September 2019, the Chandrayaan-2 Vikram lander began its final descent. Telemetry inside Mission Control showed all systems operating normally until the spacecraft reached an altitude of just 2.1 kilometers. This vector schematic shows the mechanics of the descent. The lander was equipped with 5 main engines, but they generated slightly higher than expected thrust. This extra force caused navigation errors to build up rapidly, pushing the craft off its intended trajectory. The spacecraft's onboard computer tried to correct the path, but it hit a hard software bottleneck. Safety protocols physically limited the lander from tilting any faster than 10 degrees per second, preventing it from recovering its orientation. To compound the problem, the mission was locked into a rigid 500 by 500 meter landing zone. With its restrictive tilt limit and a tiny target box, the lander had zero margin for spatial error. Vikram impacted the surface at high speed. However, all the way down, it transmitted a continuous stream of telemetry. That data turned the crash into a highly specific blueprint for the next generation of the spacecraft. For Chandrayaan-3, ISRO adopted a failure-based design philosophy. They engineered the new spacecraft specifically to bypass the hardware and software bottlenecks that ended the 2019 mission. This side-by-side comparison shows the physical upgrades. ISRO simplified the engine array by removing the central 5th engine for better throttle control. They also strengthened the impact legs and installed a laser doppler velocimeter to calculate altitude and speed in 3 directions. They also rewrote the software constraints. The new attitude correction rate was increased to 25 degrees per second, giving the lander the agility to execute rapid mid-air maneuvers during its descent. Finally, they expanded the landing site. The acceptable landing zone was increased to a 4 by 2.5 kilometer area, providing the spacecraft with significantly more room for error. In August 2023, the upgraded Vikram lander utilized these changes. It slowed its descent, hovered at 150 meters to evaluate the terrain, and touched down softly on the lunar dust. This engineering iteration made India the 4th nation to soft land on the Moon, and the very first to land in the lunar South Pole region. Shortly after landing, the Vikram lander performed one final test. It fired its engines and lifted 40 centimeters off the ground. This small jump demonstrated that ISRO hardware could successfully execute a vertical liftoff from the surface of another world. Extracting and returning lunar soil to Earth requires this liftoff capability. This makes the HOP experiment a key mechanical milestone for the upcoming Chandrayaan-4 mission. This animation outlines the scale of Chandrayaan-4. The architecture requires 5 separate modules, weighing so much that they must be launched on 2 separate rockets and then doffed in space. The Chandrayaan program has evolved from an orbital probe into a specialized surface delivery system. The continuous refinement of this indigenous engineering builds the specific technical framework required to plan for an Indian crewed landing on the Moon by 2040.